You've got these people who reckon that they can just do things just by virtue of their big brain. We know that is a physically impossible task because he admitted it a couple days later.
Which side are you on? Which side are you on?
This one is just mostly kind of funny and illustrative. And but we will be able to tie it to some broader trends of employer-employee relations, and that is Elon Musk's acquisition of Twitter. We saw the public back and forth between him and Twitter before he owned it, where he, variously tried to back out and push forward and back out again, and ended up, the thing was that the shareholders at Twitter called his bluff and made him pay up, because he made the offer at a price point that was above what Twitter was worth.
Oh, it was inflated.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
A $44 billion offer. And so because that was above the price point, shareholders were like, well, this is the best that we're ever going to get.
Right.
And you made
Grab
the offer.
bag and run.
Yeah, so that's exactly what they did. They grabbed the bag out of his hands and ran. And part of that bag apparently was contributed to by the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. I think those are some of the investors in the company now. Yeah.
I hadn't heard that, but that's not at all shocking.
They're like...
I guess I should assume that someone like Elon Musk has some business dealings with the Saudi...
Yeah, Saudi Arabia is the second largest shareholder in Twitter. Second largest... that's my understanding. Let me make sure that I'm not peddling. Saudi Prince Al Walid becomes Twitter's second largest shareholder. Yep. So I'm not
no fake news.
No fake news here. And so now he and Saudi Prince Al Walid own Twitter. And the first thing he did when he came into that position was institute an every other employee policy. And he just fired half the staff within a week. He fired half the staff. 3,700 folks cut from the company.
That's just insane.
Yeah, and now look, 3,700 people, a total of like 8,000 employees. 8,000 employees to me sounds like a lot for what Twitter does. I don't know how the running of Twitter can have enough for 8,000 employees. And so, I'm not saying that maybe there's not some fat to be trimmed there. It's possible.
Right.
But...
And I want to say that as well, too, because I acknowledge that many of these employees at Twitter are some of the most privileged and comfortable employees in the country. Because while they may be workers, they, have comfortable office clickety-clack on the computer jobs, making six figures for a silly website. So I get that, and I understand, because I see people's reactions publicly where it's like, well, these people are making 4 times what I make. I don't really feel sorry for them. Or like, hey, I'm out here busting my ass in the heat and the cold every day. Mm-hmm. Do I really feel bad for Twitter employees? And it's like, yes, we can acknowledge the relative privilege and comfort that presumably most of these employees had. I'm sure not all, but presumably many of them. We can acknowledge that while also still seeing just how messed up it is.
Yeah, and how, feeling some amount of sympathy for the people that were laid off, but also, recognizing the arrogance and the silliness of somebody coming in and in less than a week firing almost 4,000 people.
Right.
Right. I mean, even if we feel no sympathy, even if we think that these people deserved it, even if we think they deserved it, let's just grant that just for the sake of this 2 minute conversation here. How can you, just from a business perspective, how can you possibly know that those 3,700 folks were not an asset to the company after only a week? That's just physically not possible. Of course, you cannot know that. And that's the answer from a, just from a business standpoint, I'm just going to run a business. You cannot know that almost 4,000 people are not an asset to the company in a week. It goes beyond being
Cold-hearted, cold-blooded. It's just stupidity.
Right.
Actual foolishness.
I mean, even if we were to accept the role of CEO and owner as legitimate. And let's just say that we do. For the sake of this hypothetical, we both hate Twitter employees and we believe that bosses deserve to have their position, right? These are neither of these things that are things that we hold, but let's just say they do. Let's just say that we do. Bosses are legitimate. We hate Twitter employees. Okay, moving forward. Then taking on a new quote unquote leadership role as CEO, it's just simply impossible to prescribe such huge changes. The real, actual business, the humble and honest thing to do, if you're not high on your own supply, would be to just sit at the helm and observe. Go talk to these department heads, talk to the people in the, just observe for months, for 60 days at least, just 60 days, and just see how the company is run currently.
Right.
How are things being done?
You have to assess what you're inheriting.
Exactly. And like I said at the top, this is the thing that I do believe. I've no doubt that there are some things that could run better over there at Twitter headquarters. They can, anywhere there are things that can be done to improve it. And maybe it's possible some of those positions were superfluous. I'm totally down for that, but he cannot have known that in a week. It is hubris and pride and arrogance, and that's what this system creates, where you've got these people who reckon that they're magic because they own a company. They reckon that they're magic, and they have this, magic, just this magic sauce, and they can just do things just by virtue of their big brain, right? And that's just not the case. That's just not the case. You can't have known that in a week. It's impossible. And one reason that we know that is a physically impossible task is because he admitted it a couple days later. Let's put this graphic up, Adam. This is from Matt Navarra on Twitter. Confirmed. Twitter is now asking some fired workers to please come back. Some were laid off by mistake. Like just an accident.
Whoops.
Whoopsie daisy. Some were let go before management realized that their experience is needed to build new features that Elon Musk is planning.
Good Lord.
And that's the thing that you would learn if you were not high on your own supply and you recognized your fallibility as a human and you didn't have this high estimation of your own brain. This is the thing. If you sat there for 60 days and you just observed, this would not have happened, right? You would not have accidentally laid off people by mistake, and you certainly would not have laid off people that people that you needed their experience. You wouldn't have done that. You wouldn't have done that if you had just done the smart businessman thing to do. But that's not what he did. He let people go, even though he needed their experience to build new features. And now, more folks are leaving, specifically folks in privacy and security, stating that Musk is trying to roll out new features without having those features go through the proper review, and these new features that he's trying to roll out is potentially putting users, which include governments and government officials, right? Union officials, at significant security risk. These folks, as they left, like heads of security departments and whatever, they actually said that the FTC could potentially fine the company billions for the things that they're seeing before they left. And they disseminated information about whistleblower protections as they were walking out the door.
That's always a sign of a business going well, when people are quitting and spreading messages of, here's how to be a whistleblower as they leave the office. And, I'm glad you mentioned that about the FTC, because there is a consent order or consent decree that Twitter is locked into with the Federal Trade Commission regarding user privacy and user data. Mm-hmm. And so FTC has already come out and said they are very concerned about what they're seeing, and that there are tools in their toolbox through this consent order that they plan to use. Right. So he's got more trouble on the way, almost certainly.
Yeah. And that's not something, and I've seen some people talk about like, oh, this is just because you don't, that you don't like that he's a Republican or whatever. And no, like, obviously, like, how can you not see that there would be serious security concerns associated with changing a platform that hundreds of millions of people use for private communications, for public communications, that they have passwords that might be linked to bank accounts, to government services. All of these, they're real security issues that are going to implicate people's lives. And so the FTC should absolutely, as a nonpartisan thing, take the issue of American security seriously.
Right.
That's a real thing.
And certainly hold the company accountable for its own promises, more or less.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You've gone on the record.
Yeah.
You have to be held accountable there, and you just, like one of the commenters in YouTube, like, you just have to wonder, what was the plan? What did you think any of this through? What were you trying to accomplish here? Because it's just one, like, snafu after another. It's a comedy of errors with this.
Right. One of the new features that Musk wanted to roll out was Twitter Blue, which included an $8 a month verification badge, which was previously how we knew that somebody was real. But now all it says is that people paid $8 to Twitter.
Right.
And that went about exactly as well as you would think if you were not a dumbass billionaire high on your own supply.
Right.
But let's take a look at a couple of these highlights from the 2 days of Twitter Blue verification. We have a verified George W. Bush account saying, "I miss killing Iraqis," being quote tweeted by a verified Tony Blair account saying, "Same, TBH."
Probably two of the more accurate things to ever be associated with those two individuals on Twitter.
No doubt. We have a verified Eli Lilly and Company saying that we are excited to announce insulin is free now. That got a lot of likes.
Oh, yes, it did. It had a lot of real-world impact, right? That you're about to share some numbers. It's going to be interesting to see how that happens again.
Yeah. Then we had a second, different Eli Lilly account that was verified say, "We apologize to those who have been served a misleading message from a fake Lilly account about the cost of diabetic care. Humalog is now $400. We can do this whenever we want, and there's nothing you can do about it. Suck it. Our official Twitter account is @LilyPadco." And that cost Eli Lilly and Company, the real Eli Lilly and Company, billions of dollars in stock. Their stock plummeted like 10 to 20% after these tweets went out, because apparently people thought this was the real thing. I don't know. They thought like a rogue intern or something. But
right, and that's what I said last night when you were telling me about this. Like, obviously, this is just more evidence that these folks on Wall Street maybe aren't quite as brilliant as they're portrayed in the media. Because why would this impact your investment at all? To see a joke tweet?
Well, and
unless you were an idiot.
And somebody said possibly it's that the cost of insulin got in the news again, and people got upset at Eli Lilly because they were reminded of how utterly evil and depraved they are as a company. But another one was from a verified Lockheed Martin account saying, "We will begin halting all weapons sales to Saudi Arabia, Israel, and the United States until further investigation into their record of human rights abuses. #WeAreLM."
If only.
Yeah.
If only.
Yeah, now, the Bush tweet, mostly just funny, but the stocks of Eli Lilly and Lockheed did drop by literally billions of dollars after these fake tweets. And so, the ability...
Probably had some sad folks here in Huntsville.
Flee. So the ability to buy a blue check for $8 was axed after being available for 2 days. We are still getting some of these fake parody accounts because people who already had Twitter Blue are still keeping the blue check, and so some people are still changing their account names and stuff like that, who only have Twitter Blue. So we'll see what happens, but I'm sure that we'll get some more fun ones. But Bernie responded to Eli Lilly's actual response, which Eli Lilly's actual response is, "We apologize to those who have been served a misleading message from a fake Lilly account. Our official Twitter is @LilyPad." And that's the real actual Eli Lilly and Company. And Bernie responded to that, saying, "Let's be clear, Eli Lilly should apologize for increasing the price of insulin by over 12,000% since 1996 to $275, while it costs less than $10 to manufacture. The inventors of insulin sold their patents in 1923 for $1 to save lives, not to make Eli Lilly's CEO obscenely rich," which is true. But he got quote-unquote fact-checked by Elon Musk himself, presumably trying to, assuage the fears of advertisers and investors in the company.
Yeah, turns out when you lay off the entire comms department, you just have to individually go respond to everyone's concerned tweets. So we'll see how long he keeps that up.
Yeah,
I imagine not very long.
Yeah, he said, "Full answer to insulin price question is complex. No, it's not. Short answer is that original insulin, discovered in 1921, not 1923, oh wow, is inexpensive, costing as little as $25. New, higher efficacy analog variants of insulin are more expensive." So how much do those new higher efficacy analog variants of insulin cost to manufacture? Not $275.
Right.
And that is the thing. Okay, so maybe original insulin, I don't know exactly the numbers, but I'm confident. I'm confident. I don't know the exact numbers, but I'm confident of the dynamics. And the dynamics are going to be something like original insulin is inexpensive and costs $2 to manufacture per dose, whereas new higher efficacy variants cost $10 to, and it's more 10 times more expensive if those are the numbers. But that still doesn't justify $300 for insulin, and that's the thing.
Right.
That's the thing.
Absolutely not.
This is all very funny, but of course, it is going to have actual real impacts on the employees at Twitter, former employees and current employees. It's going to have impacts on journalists who have built a following over the last decade, and all because we have a system that allows someone to just buy an entire thing that tens of thousands of people have worked to build as far as the code base, that hundreds of millions of people have used, contributed to the culture of over years. We have a system that allows one guy to just own that because he has some money. We have a system that allows one guy to own that thing that tens of thousands of people have built with their labor, that hundreds of millions of people have contributed to the culture of. We have a system where one guy can buy it because he has money. Our friend and comrade Josh Armstead from Unite Here Local 23 had some good commentary on this. In his tweet says, "This chaos you're seeing on Twitter now is literally the same chaos many a worker goes through when a venture capitalist buys out a food place, a retail spot, a grocery store, or a coal mine, like our brothers and sisters down in Brookwood.
Right.
And then squeezes labor and quality to suck every penny before it goes belly up." So, this is what we're experiencing as users of Twitter, to the extent that, other people have made the incorrect decision to get on the platform, or that the employees of Twitter are experiencing. So many workers have to go through this all the time because we have a system that allows one person to control everything just because they have money. And you had some like personal anecdotes here, like right here in Athens, of that happening, right?
Yeah. I'm aware of a firm in Athens that was bought out by a much larger company, and apparently that's it. That's been the MO of this company, is to snatch up smaller, firms around the area. And talking to some of the workers there, and these were fairly well compensated. These were white collar professional jobs, but the transition and the buyout resulted in worse working conditions, less input on the job, less clarity in terms of their policies and procedures, confusion. It almost certainly is going to lead to layoffs if it hasn't already, because of redundancies and looking at the organization chart. So this is something that workers experience a lot. I know the brothers and sisters you've been talking to down at the paper mill.
Yeah.
Multiple owners of the paper mill. And then, every time you get new ownership, that's a whole new set of problems potentially. Usually it is a new set of problems. And that's something that workers have to deal with. No one ever asks us.
Mm-hmm.
When a company is going bankrupt or a company is going up for sale, no one ever asks the workers what they think about it.
Right.
No one ever asks the workers what the future should be for the firm.
Yeah.
And that's why I think policies such as the right of first refusal, where the workers in a business would have the first right to purchase the business before it is sold to another capitalist or a collection of hedge funds or what have you. I think that's a very important policy that we should all be seeking to expand and implement here all over the United States, because it's a shame, as you mentioned, that just one rich guy can come in and take over a company and fuck up people's lives, just because he can and he wishes to. And I think this really demonstrates a bigger issue as well, that we are led to believe that these folks like Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos, that these are brilliant entrepreneurs. They're geniuses. They are, you'll often hear people compare them favorably towards like politicians and government officials, that, if only we ran things more like a business, right? If only we had people like Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk and these really smart guys. I mean, so much so, it's so ingrained in even working class people.
Right.
I have had many working class people tell me, well, he must be smart. He wouldn't be that rich. I've heard that about Trump. I've heard that about Musk. I've heard that about Bezos. Well, he must be brilliant. Otherwise, he wouldn't be a billionaire, right?
Right.
And I think this is good evidence that the oligarchy is not sending their best folks.
Yeah.
They're not sending the best and brightest. And just because you have risen, or in most cases, been born into a position of tremendous wealth and power, does not equate with intelligence, does not equate with rationality, does not equate with efficiency. And so those ideas which swirl around in our society and our culture and permeates, it's bullshit.
Yeah.
It's bullshit. And if anything comes out of this whole Twitter fiasco, I hope that some folks do think about it. And I suspect that Elon's popularity has really tanked in recent months, because he has been showing his ass, and he has been kind of alienating even more people than he had previously. But I really hope that, at least for some folks, it sheds light on this mystification around these billionaires and these entrepreneur figures. They're elite because of the wealth and power they have, not because of their intelligence, not because of their ability, not even because of their ability to run a business well.
Right.
That's not required. That's not required. And our economy, especially given the amount of monopoly power that is present throughout our economy, you don't have to be a brilliant businessman to make a lot of money. You just have to have the wealth and power already. You have to have the right spot in the hierarchy. Yeah. And so we'll see. We'll see what comes out of this Twitter fiasco. But I certainly hope that it is a wake-up call for some folks, and makes it harder and harder for the media and these capitalist lackeys to push this out into our consciousness.
You just saw a clip from the Valley Labor Report. We are live every Saturday morning from 9:30 a.m. till 12:30 p.m. And we pride ourselves on keeping all of our content free to everybody so that we can talk to as many working folks as possible. If you support the work that we're doing, you think that it's important, you think that it's good, then consider making a monthly contribution to the project, and you can do that on our website, tvlr.fm.